Hi, today we're going to speak a little bit about the Piskei Tosfos. The Piskei Tosfos are a collection of psukim, as the name suggests. They're a collection of psukim on Tosfos. What does that mean, psukim on Tosfos? So, as we know that the nature of the Tosfos commentary on the Talmud, on the Gemara, is that it's very dialectic in nature. It asks a question, it raises a contradiction, suggests a resolution. And when one reads Tosfos, you can sometimes leave reading the Tosfos very dizzy. There were a lot of discussion, a lot of questions, a lot of suggested answers, and it's not always immediately clear what's the final result. Is there a halachic psak ruling that comes out of the Tosfos? So someone came along, probably during the end of the period of the Balei Tosfos, and wrote a commentary or a summary on Tosfos where he basically pulled out of each Tosfos what is the final ruling that emerges from this Tosfos. Not every Tosfos has a final ruling, and therefore he didn't comment on those Tosfos. But when there was a final ruling that emerged from a Tosfos, so he would write in very brief form, almost like summary notes, and you can look, it's printed in the back of our Talmud. In fact, from the very first printing from Gershon Sansino, it was already included. We're talking back in the 16th century. It was already included in the back of the Gemara, the printed Gemara. And you can look there and you can see on a single page the final rulings for a number of prakim, a number of chapters in the Masechta. You can see all of the final rulings listed one right after the other. Now, who's the author of this? We're not exactly sure. There were some who suggested that it was the Tur, the son of the Rosh, and the author of the famous codification of halacha called the Tur. But many suggest it was somebody else. His name was Rabbi Yaakov of Nordhaus, and he was a German Rishon. He was killed al Kiddush Hashem in 1349, which is when the Black Plague was ravishing through Europe, and there were many incidences of mob violence against Jews, and unfortunately, there were a number of Rishonim that were killed during that time. So he was unfortunately killed al Kiddush Hashem at that time. But he lives towards the end of the Balei Tosfos. When we speak about Balei Tosfos, we're generally speaking about a period that begins in the 1100s, let's say with Rabbeinu Tam and his nephew, the Ri. And it's a period that's going to extend, let's say, through the 1300s, through the 14th century. Somewhere around that 200-year period is going to be the period of the Balei Tosfos, depending on who we include as part of the Balei Tosfos. And they were the great scholars of France and Germany who commented on their ancestor on Rashi's commentary. That's perhaps why it's called Tosfos. They were adding onto Rashi's commentary. And also the commentary, they were commenting on the Gemara itself, doing very close reading and analysis of the Gemara. So again, all of that tremendous work, which is, it's volumes and volumes. Sometimes it takes up a significant part of the page of the Gemara. So the Piskei Tosfos, again, what we're speaking about today, was a summary lahalacha commentary that collected the final psak and listed it. What is very interesting to do is to sometimes compare. We don't have enough time to discuss it right now, but the different Tosfos commentaries that we have on different tractates, different Masechtos, were written by different people. And so too, the Piskei Tosfos is not always properly corresponding to the Tosfos that we have. They're all coming from the same school. They're all coming from the Balei Tosfos. But sometimes, for instance, you might have a Masechta where the Tosfos commentary was written by one Baal Tosfos, and the Piskei Tosfos was written as a summary lahalacha on a different Tosfos collection, written by a different Tosfos author. And therefore, sometimes the conclusions of the Piskei Tosfos differ from the conclusions that we see in the Tosfos itself. And that already complicates things. That's one of the reasons why when we have a contradiction between a Tosfos in one Masechta and another Masechta, it's not necessarily a contradiction. It could be that those Tosfos commentaries on those different Masechtos were written by different people. So too, sometimes the Piskei Tosfos summary was written on a different Tosfos commentary than the one that happens to be printed in our Gemara. But most of the time it corresponds, and it is an important tool when learning.